Hello, Kiana here. Wait for about 5 minutes for people to join on. YouTube has been weird lately, so we'll see what happens today. Oh, I amuse myself. Today we're talking about superpowers. Very excited about that. I'm just gonna see what's going on YouTube today. Hello, good to see you, Lucas. Hello, my beautiful, soft little thing. Good to see you. You know, I haven't seen a lot of the regulars lately, so I was wondering what's going on. Today we're talking about superpowers. I'm gonna start a poll. Here we go. Do you know the superpower of consent? Do you know? That's also, there's also a universal law of consent and intent. It's one of the natural laws, and it's very important. It is very important. Hello, Sailor's Life. You're going to like today's. Today's about your superpower. Oh my gosh, my glasses are dirty. Today is about your superpowers. Now, I'm just going to chit chat here until we let some people come on, but oftentimes our superpowers are not what we think they are. So, and oftentimes we resist our superpowers because they're different from other people. Like one of my superpowers, I didn't know what I was doing when I was doing it because I didn't know because nobody talks about it. But well, obviously I have a nose. You have a nose, we have noses. But I have the superpower of smell. I can smell the most offensive smells from miles away. And I can also smell cancer, which is not a favorable smell. And it is not ideal. However, it is a superpower. So that's one of my superpowers. Another superpower that I've had since I was a little girl is I can feel people's incongruence, which, you know, when you're growing up, you don't see that as a superpower necessarily because it's quite uncomfortable. But today, we're going to talk about other superpowers that everybody has access to. Because we all have unique gifts, right? We all have unique gifts. So I'm just going to wait for people to join on here for a few more minutes. My beautiful, soft little thing says, I've been wanting to do the live streams myself, but I have trouble concentrating because my own image distracts me. What I can tell you about my experience of doing these lives is I care less about what people think about me than I ever thought I could. So I would just move beyond your fears. The best way through fear is to move through it. You don't let it direct you. Oh, thank you for your compliment. Lucas is special needs. Your special needs. What is your superpower? Today we're talking about the universal law of intent and consent. And a lot of people don't really know what their superpowers are, but we all have them. I normally don't eat, excuse me. During the live, but I put this bowl of olives right by me and I just unconsciously went and took one. Sorry about that. Talking with my mouth full. That's not very professional. I was going to say, these videos, YouTube's algorithm has completely changed, as you guys can tell. We used to have thousands of people popping in here and bots and all that kind of thing. In the last week, it's completely changed. And I've been told that, thank you, Sailor's Life. I didn't mean to do that. I have been told that, it's all changed. So whatever. You're here. Oh, this is what I was going to say. I was told that the notifications aren't going on. So I'm glad that you guys got the notification. I do want to say today we are talking about the natural law of intent and consent. And this one is so important because most people do not realize how they abdicate their consent. So there's implied consent, express consent, informed consent, and silent consent. And people who manipulate others will use things like people saying okay as consent, even though some people might say okay and mean I acknowledge that you're saying something. I'm not necessarily in agreement. But with things like black magic, all you need is a nod of the head or some little sign and it swoops in and you're hooked. So consent is critical to developing inner congruence, okay? Because you must have conscious awareness of what you're going into agreement with. And most of us, when we are having patterns of incongruence, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual incongruence, it will be because there is some patterns of consent or agreement that you've gone into. So I want to talk more about that. So one of the things that people do is they give away their personal consent. They permit, approve, yield, or agree. Now, some people think that it's not a big deal that you said okay, but you don't know what you've given authorization to. You don't know what you've gone into agreement with. So instead of saying okay, or yes, I understand, what you want to say is I don't consent. Get in the habit of saying I don't consent. Do not consent to things that really throw off your physical body. So some of those things that a lot of people think is not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal, is when you go to the airport and you get in those x-rays. Those x-ray machines give off frequencies that weaken your energetic field. Now, do most people know that? No. Do most people want their field weaker? No. But if you don't know, then you're not authorizing from informed consent. So you must start to think about, did I give implied consent? Did I give express consent? Did I give informed consent? Did I go into silent consent? Stop consenting to things that you don't know what you're consenting to. Whether it's a doctor or a government agency or another person who you don't know. Like I will tell you, there are other energy people out there that say that they're working in the light and they are just simply black magicians. That's it. They are working for the other side. And they hook people into networks and matrices that just continue to go down in spirals. So, okay, so I just want to say, the other thing about consent is that when you are not, let's just say, aware, you compromise your relationship with your soul by giving up consent, which is not really fun. So how do you do that? Well, let's just say you're talking to somebody who you think is a, just a regular person. You don't know what they do. And you're nodding your head. Well, you don't know what they're saying in their intentions in their mind, whether they're casting spells or doing things nefariously. And you're nodding your head, and that gives consent. But you don't know what you gave consent to because you didn't know they were doing that. just do not go in agreement. Again, I want to say this repeatedly. Just do not go into agreement. Do not consent. Say, I do not consent, and get in the habit of I do not consent. And going back to the airport situation, don't go through those x-ray machines. You can opt out. You can opt out of having your photo taken. You can opt out of everything at least in the United States, they call it TSA. I don't know what they call it elsewhere. But you can opt out of all of those things, because when you opt into them, you're giving authorization. What are you giving authorization for if you don't even know? What are they doing with those photos? Where are those photos going? That's not informed consent. You want to have informed consent. The people that are just walking through mindlessly is silent consent. So you want to know what you're giving consent to, so you don't ever compromise your inner relationship. This universal law of intent and consent is primary to directing energy. So if you want to basically claim your field, you must understand intent and consent. Why? Because intent is a frequency. When you're doing intentions, which I'm not going to really go into totally today, because I have a whole class on intention setting for free here that is to help get you into the frequency of intention, right? Because intention is a frequency, and that is what you resonate with. Consent is also what you go into agreement with. So there are two things that can work in opposition. Most people who are giving up their consent are also not having intention. So they just give it up because they don't know what they're giving up. This is your personal relationship with your soul that you're compromising. So you don't want to compromise that. So what is consent really about? It's about the contents of your mind, right? And so oftentimes here in the chat, people always say they have overthinking, or they ruminate on their thoughts, or they're continually having racing thoughts or looping thoughts. Well, oftentimes these people do not realize that they have given up consent of their mind. It may have been stolen, usurped, manipulated, and what we see on here on social media is manufactured. So you really want to be mindful and go out of agreement. Like, start when you're scrolling, I don't agree, I don't agree. And if you can't agree, you might as well get off of scrolling, right? So you don't want to mindlessly do things because you don't know what you're consenting to, and you don't know what the energy is behind things. And trust me, these people who are doing nefarious actions, they know that they have intention behind it. You can go on some websites and you can, if you're perceptive, you can feel the energy is slimy, okay? So one of the other things that's happening with informed consent in the mind is that people are going into what's called victim-victimizer. This victim-victimizer is that there's a victim and then there's a victimizer. Somebody is something, and sometimes they're holding it through all their layers: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And then sometimes even with in between their fields. So it's really an interesting process. It's not very comfortable when you realize that you've given up your consent. But anybody who is contended with dark forces or black magic or demonic energies or just hateful, spiteful people who don't realize that being in a hateful, spiteful, venomous state, that is casting spells. That's spell casting. So there was somebody on here the other day that was wanting me to do something with somebody, and they were already casting spells with their energy that was filled with hate. So that is dark forces, people who are hateful and venomous. That's what they are doing. That is not of the light. That is not of love. It is anti-life. It is anti-Christ. It is anti-everything good. And it's really alignment to death. So that's why your consent is your superpower. So if you're not consenting consciously, you want to just go in the habit of, I do not consent. No, I don't consent. I do not consent. I do not agree. I don't agree with things that I don't agree with. I will agree to disagree. But when you're working with people you don't know, don't agree to disagree, because that is a manipulative tactic. Okay, so don't agree to disagree with people you don't know. Just don't agree. I don't agree. I don't consent. You can have your opinion. Okay? But most people do not know that consent is 50-50 here. 50-50 if you did not know that consent was a superpower, right? Wow. So you've been missing out on your superpower. You've been missing out. Okay, I'm just going to see what questions you guys have. I've been doing awesome every day. My superpower is being so nice to my friends and family. Why are you limiting, Lucas? You're being nice to your friends and family. Why don't you just be nice to everybody? Being respectful, so being nice to everyone. Never give up on life, right? Lucas, spread kindness everywhere. Yes, that is the message. I am good. It's Saturday here. It's kind of been cold, and then it got warm in the afternoon today. Why couldn't y'all get the Bears to vote? I don't know what you're talking about. We don't really talk politics here. Okay, can I give the correct meaning of consent? Okay, so you don't think I've given the correct meaning? I've actually been giving the practice of consent. What do you think the correct meaning is? Consent has 4 options, right? It's implied, express, informed, and silent. So if you're going to the doctor's office, oh, this is a good point. One of the things that I see with clients often is they might have some physical pain or discomfort or neuropathy or all kinds of things. But they don't realize that they have taken medications that is a direct side effect of. And oftentimes when we've done some work and we look at the issue that they're contending with, 99% of the time, not all the time, but 99% of the time, it's a direct correlation to a prescription that they've taken, of which they don't know the side effects. They didn't read. So that would be a lack of informed consent. So they took something, they ingested it, they gave their consent away to something, a pill, thinking it was going to be something that they thought it was, but they didn't look at it, they didn't do any research, so it's not any kind of informed consent. A lot of people did that with the jab, and they didn't really know that they gave their consent away for their body. And a lot of those medications, especially now, have what's called nanoparticles in them. And nanoparticles are just like particles that come together and they operate within the body system, and they actually work against organic blueprints. But if you don't know that, you don't have informed consent. How many people go and read what medicines they're taking and what the side effects? Hardly any. Now, I've read them, and I don't even take those medicines. I read them to help my clients understand what's actually transpiring, and then we can have a corrective action to mitigate it. But if you don't understand that you've given away your consent, you have to take your consent back. But sometimes taking your consent back means understanding where you gave it up, so you have a conscious understanding of intention and consent and how the law actually works. Dr. Crankin, my superpower is everything and ended up becoming depressed. Oh, Dr. Crankin, I'm so sorry to hear that. Depression is not impossible to overcome, Dr. Crankin. So when you have alignment, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, you will feel much better. But there's so many aspects of depression that go what's the word? Ignored? I think I want to use the word ignored. So, because our chemicals within our body can go out of whack, and they just need to be realigned. And once they're realigned, the depression goes away. So sometimes it's a simple, easy fix. Sometimes it's much more complicated. But one thing for sure, and I've had a pattern of clients, more than one, so definitely a pattern, who have had chronic issues with depression and got electrical shock done to them many times, and this has caused a change in how the brain is actually signaling to all different aspects of the body. So again, informed consent is super important, but many people give up their consent. Don't give up your consent. Say, I do not consent. Go and do your critical thinking. Go and do your research. Go look at the different ways that consent can be implied and you give it up. Go look at how you have given up implied consent in your life, and you can take it back from the now moment. Because look, let's be honest, people who are manipulative take implied consent and go to town with it. This happens all the time in corporate world, in executive meetings. People don't say something. Its silence is perceived as consent oftentimes. I learned that early on in my career. Okay. Elliot, hi, good to see you. Yesterday I did a live stream and it went great for 40 minutes, but today I'm having trouble uploading the public view at the same time. I don't seem to give myself the consent to try to be successful. I wouldn't. The algorithms on YouTube are weird. Like this last week I've gotten kicked off. So don't take everything personal. That's definitely something you'll learn from doing lives. How can I overcome overthinking? How can I reduce stress? Can you microdose fentanyl? That is crazy. Why would you want to do that? No, fentanyl is given out here freely. You can get kicked off YouTube for misinformation. You can get kicked off for all kinds of things. I think during the elections, it was just crazy. What I will say about overthinking is that you need to understand what you're consenting to, right? We're talking about the universal law of intent, consent, and that's part of the natural laws. So when you want to be aligned within, it's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. You don't have to believe in the natural laws. It is what ordains all energetic fields. So it's helpful to have an understanding of it. Conscious intent is a frequency that you align to, right? And consent could be something that causes you to go in and out of congruence with the frequency that you wish. That's why so many people will have a preference of one thing, but a vibration of another. The vibration wins out every single time. So preference and of your mind is going to be more about consent. This is about your informed, conscious consent to things. And I would just say don't go into consent with anything that you're not in agreement with. How do you know if you're in agreement? You must have intention to be using critical thinking, right? Critical thinking is a skill that must be utilized. And so many people just are not utilizing their mental capacities. Why? That's why they have an overthinking. If you are not directing your thoughts, then you will be overthinking, right? If you're not being intentional, your thoughts will just do like the heartbeat, just run. So if you're not running them, somebody else will. That's what I mean about informed consent. Okay. Reducing stress, there's lots of things you could do for reducing stress. But I would look at like, what are you aligned to in your lifestyle? I would say that's the most understated way of looking at stress is, what is your lifestyle? Like when I was traveling a lot, that was my lifestyle. My lifestyle was a stressful lifestyle. And it would take me, I would go on a business trip, especially as I became more energetically attuned, as they say, more of an empath, more of an intuitive, more of just more utilizing more of my higher sensory. It became more difficult for me to have a high stress level, meaning I would go on a trip and it would take me 3 or 4 days to just recoup. So you have to look at your stress, like your lifestyle, and consciously change your lifestyle. I consciously changed my lifestyle. When I met my husband, I consciously chose to not travel as much as I used to travel. I love to travel, and I was fine when I was going, but I didn't like to leave my husband. I just enjoy our time together. So I changed my entire career. Hey, always stressed about everything, and I feel like I'm sick because of how I think. Well, your thoughts become form. So, Shazam, is that Shazam TV? Cute name. I would suggest, first of all, that's a very astute awareness that you have that your thoughts are making you sick, and they will. So I have a free class on here called Intention Setting to Synchronicity. That would be a good practice to start intention, right? But also you want to know how are you connecting to your heart? So you will be very stressed out if you are disconnected from your heart. So you want to do things to consciously connect with your heart and find ways to express kindness and gratitude. And I think I did feeling stuck in your expression. Go watch that video. I think it's like 3 or 4 days ago. I did that. There's an exercise that I gave there. There's very powerful, and that will change your patterns immediately. By the end of the week, you should feel distinctly different. And if you did that exercise in conjunction with the intention setting, Shazam, you should really have a distinctly different way of being by the end of the week. So like 10 days. Sorry about your grandfather. Cancer is definitely on the upswing. My beautiful, soft little thing. What are you talking about on your channel? Hey, Ats. Just looking for questions here. Sailor's life. To take it back, you need to come back to the moment. This is good. This is a good question, Sailor's life. To take it back, you need to come back to the moment you gave it up. So timelines are very tricky and complex because there's many different ways of looking at timelines, Sailor's life. But what I would say is having the awareness that you have now, you can override your consent from past timelines by using statements like, I take back and command back all consent that I gave out without my conscious awareness. Doing this in conjunction with your higher self and your God self, and that should get you to the point where you clear that consent. Does that make sense? You make the intention now. It's a yes and Sailor's life, because you make the intention. Now the intention is not to ever give up your consent without being consciously aware, right? So sometimes you will notice like people just nod their head and they don't know what they're nodding their head to. And I did this to a black musician, and I didn't know that they were doing black magic at the time. But it completely derailed my derailed and realigned my life, let's just say. But I knew the moment when I understood that this was a thing. I knew the moment that happened, and I knew the exact conversation in which that transpired, which I got hijacked. And this is the manipulation, this is the intimidation, this is the bullying that these nefarious energies that we often give consent to. And I will say many doctors are operating in these fields of magic, and they don't call it magic because you think they're not doing magic because they're in a doctor's uniform, and you're mistaken. You don't know. And if you don't know, you don't know. So don't give consent when you don't know. Anyways, I digress. So setting the intention now to not give consent. I do not consent to that medicine. I do not consent to going into x-rays. I do not consent to taking medicines that I have not researched. That's just me. And I would suggest that more people not give consent to their, like, look what happened on Facebook, right? They took everybody's personal information. People sign that up and they give their consent. Even with my iPhone, you have to give consent on certain things, right? Even to use the phone. Facebook, same thing. They get all your information, all their photos, theirs. What are they doing with the photos? Has anybody gone and researched? Or do you think that they're just using it for just the goodness of their heart? So you need to take back all your consent in all aspects, okay? And that's a conscious intention. That's a command. Is the purpose of meditation to let your mind run free? Well, that's an interesting thing. I think a lot of people do meditation differently. So let me just read your question, Aaron. Is the purpose of meditation to let your mind run free until you have a clear understanding of what it's connected to your true self? I would say I don't do meditation like that. So I personally set an intention for every meditation I do. I am very intentional. Why? Because intention is the foundation of your energetic structures. And if you're not setting intentions, then things will just run amok. That's part of the problem. Like when I used to go into corporate meetings and they would have an agenda. And sometimes the agenda is just to provide safety for the group. And then they just do whatever the hell they want. Well, the agenda is the intention. So if something is off of the agenda, I would say, I don't consent to that. That's what I would do. But since I was the consultant, I would come in and I would give such a vague agenda to provide a sense of safety to people because people give consent. And then I could adjust the meeting function to what's more in alignment with flow and circulation, because many meetings don't have that. So let's go back to meditation. Meditation needs to have an intention. So I don't know what your purpose of your meditation is, but there are many different kinds of meditation. And I would opt out of doing those meditations where people are listening to those audios on repeat from a voice that they don't know, from a person that they know nothing about. Like I would energetically see, are you in alignment with the purpose of the person who's making this meditation? But so many people go into consent. And so when you go into a meditation and you're listening to those meditations, you're basically giving consent to them for them to override your thoughts and your patterns. That's your energy field. Why would you do that with some app? Why? I know it's very common, but why would you do that? You just are giving up consent, and your brain has patterns. And it's very, very important that you understand to not give up your consent. Okay, let's see. I hope that answered your question. Not all meditations are to connect you to your heart. I would want to be connected to my heart in every moment of every day and everything that I'm doing. So sometimes those guided meditations takes you into your imagination, and a lot of times people are being taken to places that they don't even know what's happening energetically. I wouldn't do that. High five, Flames. Thank you. I'm having coffee too. Sailor's Life, does that help at all? Atomic Star Lord, can you ask me a philosophical question? Sure. My beautiful soft little thing is doing shorts, anything and everything, starting with cats and dogs. Cute. When I started doing longer videos, dogs and cats. Oh, you want to have a career as a comedian? Oh, interesting. Well, you better get used to being on camera. The more you build up your self-esteem, the less you will care what other people think of you. Okay? So that might be some place to focus. And I'm pretty sure I did a live video on self-esteem. So it's in one of the 200 or 300 videos I've done on this series. The Being in Sync 366 video series is a series of live videos where I'm just coming on here every day talking about the natural laws and how to align physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because that's what I do. I do it every day. I do a process called energy psychology, and I help clients align physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Sailor's Life. Okay, good. Sailor's Life. Thank you. I'm so glad. I'm glad that's helpful. And you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, no doubt. So when you go back to that event, just own your power, because that's your power that you're taking back. So you want to take back all your power and cut all cords. Okay, good. You're welcome, my beautiful soft little thing. All right, well, we're just about at 40 minutes, and I don't see any questions about the law of intent and consent. Let me see what note. So how do you give away personal intent would be a good one. Permit, approve, yield, or agree. That's 4 ways in which you could give away your personal consent. So just get in the habit of saying, I don't consent. I don't consent. I don't agree. I don't approve. I have no problem saying any of those. Do you? No, I don't do tarot. Thank you. I should not drink alcohol. Thank you. I'm from California. Okay, is there any questions? I think it's a really important one, especially now. You know, everybody has the experience of COVID and seeing what happens when, you know, our consent is taken or stolen or manipulated. And so you got to own your consent. Even here in the United States, they were doing this thing where they check your temperature, and they were using those electrical things, and they put it right here on your third eye. No, you can't have my temperature done there. No. If anybody knows the power of their body, this is a very sacred spot. This is what connects you. Your third eye, there's a lot of information that happens there. I'm drinking coffee. Any questions? Let me think. I'm just trying to think what I would want to know. So when somebody would ask to take my temperature, I'd give them my wrist. And if they, because I didn't care if they did it on my wrist. That was when I went to a doctor's office. So you could see, I was not their favorite person because I challenged their norms. And that's what happens when you don't give up consent, is you challenge norms. I don't know who Ava Adams is, but Warriors of Light, has someone told you you are beautiful? Not today, thank you. What is the third eye? The third eye is right here. You could go look it up, go Google it. If you don't know what your extrasensory perception areas are, which is what that is, you should go learn about it and understand it, and understand that not just because somebody says they can take your temperature there does not mean you should allow it. So let me say, what else? I opt out of temperature taking, reading. I opt out of most rules. So anybody who's trying to assert their authority over your personal consent, I always opt out of it. Greg saying his awkwardness is his superpower. I love it. I love it. You know, we're all different, Greg, right? We're all different. Good to see you here. Hey, Vicky. I am a rebel. I'm a rebel with a heart, and I intend to expand my heart. And anything that makes me feel less than aligned, I don't do it. It really takes, this is why I said that your superpower, everybody can have a superpower. And, you know, your consent is your superpower. It directly connects you with your personal authority, your way of being. Oh, Mr. Enigma. Why would you assume anything? First of all, I would say why you think that the political system is only really two options. I work in the law of the domain of the law of one. There's always more than one option, okay? There's more than two options. There's always options. Okay. Yeah, so it's okay to say no. I don't agree. No, I do not consent. No, I'm not aligned with that. No, I do not agree. We can agree to disagree. Do you know you are here purely because of science and technology? I would say I'm here because I'm aligned to God. But, I mean, we're all entitled to our perceptions. Thank you, Peter. Peter B. Parker. Very sweet. Danish is saying, no, I do not agree. All right. Okay. I don't consent to you're not agreeing. Okay, you go and study history and science that has been manipulated and distorted from the beginning. You go study it. Go look at all the manipulation and all of the misinformation, disinformation, distortion. And let's just say, you know, all of history and science is all going to be based on perception. Greg is saying just say no. Namaste, Danish. Right? You should not follow anybody blindly, right? That would be silent consent, maybe? I don't know. I would say, Rampasad, you might be well educated, but that doesn't mean well informed. And I think that's where people get misled, is they think because they have a quote unquote formal education that they are better than or know more than others. And that's actually a lie. And that's where people get fooled into their ego mind and they think they know more, but they don't. And so it's really interesting. Robert Pounders is saying, you mean misinformation to kids about gender identity BS. I don't really want to get into that, but there is a lot of misinformation for sure. What is the most important thing for me? Do you mean in general? The most important thing to me is my direct relationship with God. Okay, somebody is spamming. Okay, y'all. Well, it's been about 45 minutes. It doesn't seem like anybody has anything specifically about consent. Nobody 7. Where have you been? It has been so long. It's good to see you here. Where have you been? Okay, then we can agree to disagree. You don't break my house because I know better. You go ahead and study your books and go get that formal education and think you're better. Nobody 7. I'm waiting for your response. Where have you been? How have you been? Hey, Vicky. Cece, oh no. I'm so sorry you hit your head and got hurt. Okay, y'all. Well, it's been about 45 minutes and the world is better with God. Yeah? Well, the world is operating because of the natural laws. Oh, good to see you back here, Nobody 7. The lives have completely changed. It's wild. For all of you who are new here, I put a survey to see what the best times are. So if you can go take that, that would be great. Today we were talking about the superpower of consent and how so many people give up consent without their conscious awareness. So implied consent, express consent, informed consent, and silence consent. Really know your superpower is about how you are consenting to what it is you are going into agreement with, right? That's what agreement is. It's a consent. So if you are experiencing things that you do not prefer, you want to look at where you've gone into consent with things, where you've gone into agreement so you can shift and change. My name is Kiana Sage. I come on here every day for this Being in Sync 366 video series. Every day is a different topic, and I'm talking about the natural laws, how to align physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's what I do every day on here. Right now, I'm coming on between 12 and 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you could put on your notifications. That sometimes helps. But do your best to see us. Hey, Helene, you guys are coming on. All right, Greg, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sailors Live. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey. Thank you, Helene. Okay. All right, you guys have a great day. I just like to read the comments here. It's so fun. See you tomorrow, y'all. See you tomorrow. Cheers to Being in Sync.